I was going to do it tomorrow because normally we do a Thursday 3:30 class, but um, my schedule is so bonkers right now with these mergers and stuff that we're doing, which is exciting. But sometimes, I get a call on Tuesday and it's, hey, that company that we're in the process of, merging with or purchasing. Yeah. They want to do it Thursday. Okay. So sometimes I gotta just go, which is exciting and good stuff. But so that's why I put this on Telegram yesterday. Do you want me to reschedule the class or do it on a Wednesday? And the majority said, hey, let's do it Wednesday. But for those of the people that couldn't make it, I said I'll record it. So that's what we're going to do. So this was a class that was requested from some of our agents in regards to probates, divorces, NODs. What are some best practices for that? Hold on, I'm getting a message here. What's the passcode? So I'm going to take care of that. There we go. What are some best practices going after NODs, probates, divorces, things along those lines? So I have a list of thoughts here on going after those particular sources. You can take those for what it is and go from there. I want to start by saying this. When it comes to probates, NODs, divorces, things along those lines, these are obviously negative things happening in people's lives. Okay. NODs, notice of default. They can't make their payment. Hold on 1 second. Let me close this door. All right, good stuff. NODs, they can't make their payment. Stands for notice of delinquent, for those of you that don't know. Okay. They can't make their payments. They're having financial problems. Not a positive thing. Divorce. Okay. All jokes aside, because, there's always somebody that, happily divorced, but all jokes aside is a negative thing going on in somebody's life. Right. And probate, the ultimate negative thing, because somebody died. All right. So these are the negative things in our business. So what I want you to think about as you embark on going after these particular sources, the first thing I wrote down here is you need to be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations. Okay. Now that sounds really simple, but it's a real question you have to ask yourself is, am I okay? Am I comfortable having uncomfortable conversations? Now, I don't want anyone to raise their hand, but I just want you to ask yourself this question. In life, not forget real estate, just in life in general, how do I respond to uncomfortable situations? How do I respond to uncomfortable conversations? Okay. Because you need to be honest with yourself about that before you embark on calling these or prospecting these general sources. Because if you're the type of person that gets uncomfortable in uncomfortable situations, I'm not trying to be mean or rude, but this is probably not going to be great sources for you. Imagine calling someone who's a probate, right? So somebody in their family just died and you are awkward. You're uncomfortable talking to them about their house. Are they going to work with you? No, because they're already upset. They're already going through a lot. And you just kind of have an uncomfortable way of talking and your body language. And they're just like, I got enough going on. Okay. This is not me. Someone who's delinquent on their mortgage. You're essentially calling someone and, well, let's be honest. When most people have financial problems, do they keep it to themselves or do they talk to people about it? They keep them to themselves, right? Because they're embarrassed to talk about their financial problems. Okay. I've been there. I'm not shy about the fact that years ago I was not in a good financial place. But to the people that knew me, they thought my life was fantastic because I didn't want to talk about my financial problems. It's embarrassing. So most people who have financial problems are embarrassed to talk about it. And now here you come, some stranger, somebody they don't know, and you're calling them out to talk about their financial problems. Uncomfortable, yes or no? Yes.
Yes.
So if you can't be comfortable with that uncomfortable situation, then you're just going to make the process worse. Okay. So whenever it comes to these topics, I always want to start with that. I'm not discouraging anyone from working these sources because they can be good sources of business. I just want you, I'm always, whenever I'm talking about sources, I go through this with expires all the time, right? Whenever I talk about working different sources, going through different programs, part of my mind, I'm always trying to think ahead of, is this going to frustrate them to where they give up? Not on the source, but on the business. They give up because I've seen this with expireds a lot. They're not getting expired business. They get frustrated. They give up on the expires. And then they're just frustrated with prospecting. They're frustrated everything in general. And it's the spiral. And it's like, man, if you had just avoided this problem to begin with. So I'm always looking at that when we're talking about sources. So that's why I always start with something like this. Okay. Because I don't want you to go down this path and you're not comfortable having these conversations. And then you come back 2 months later and you're like, man, this isn't working. This isn't working. This stinks. I'm not going to do this anymore. And then that negativity, that frustration builds up and it's going to affect any other prospecting that you're doing. Am I making sense here? Okay. So that's why I want to start with this. I don't want to discourage you. I just want you to be honest with yourself on how do I respond to uncomfortable situations, because that's what this is. This is an uncomfortable situation. Okay. So now moving forward, couple notes I wrote down here on working these particular sources. The number one thing to me, now you will decide for yourself what's the most important thing, but the number one thing that's important to me in regards to all three of these scenarios is you need to find out who all of the decision makers are in the process. And you need to find that out as quickly as humanly possible. Because what I see a lot when people work these particular leads is, oh, I spoke to, I'm calling Probates and I spoke to the son. And so I'm working with the son, right? We're trying to work out a deal. We're trying to work out a deal. We're trying to set an appointment, trying to get together. But what you don't know is that the son has two sisters. And the two sisters are the ones that are really calling the shots. Okay. And you're just working with the son. You need to find out right away, hey, who's involved with this? Is it just you? Is there other family members involved? Like, who's involved in the decision making? Is there already an attorney involved? Right? I need to find out everyone that's involved, because if they say, well, it's me and my two sisters, great. Now, what should you try to do when you find out that it's him and his two sisters?
Meet with everybody.
That's it. You got to talk to all of them.
Mm-hmm.
But don't try to get them all together, because it's probably not going to happen. Okay. And you're going to spend too much time if you try to say, hey, well, can the three of us get on a call? Can the three of us meet? The four of us meet? Can we do all that? And more than time, the answer is going to be, well, this one lives here. This one lives here. This one works these hours. These ones work these hours. This one doesn't give a crap who you are. Okay. So you're going to try to get them all together, and it's going to be too hard. So instead, hey, no, my two sisters are involved. Okay, great. What are your sisters' names? Okay. Well, it's Jane and Jan. Great. What are Jane and Jan's phone numbers? Because I want to make sure to call them to answer any questions that they have as well. And then you can just call them separately. Okay. You will get through this process faster if you just go straight for, let me just call them individually. Okay. Same thing, whether it be a divorce. Same thing, be a divorce. Well, look, I talked to the, so-and-so, she's getting divorced from her husband. Okay, great. And she says that she's going to be the one picking the real estate agent. Okay. Anyone ever run into a situation where the spouse was the one who picked the real estate agent? Right? Male or female, you know? So don't ever trust it on that. Are most divorces very amiable situations?
Nope.
No.
No.
So is it possible that the spouse might pick a different real estate agent just to piss off the other spouse?
Definitely.
I want to work with Robert. You know what? Just because you like him, screw him. We're not going with him specifically for that reason. So with a divorce, whoever you're talking to, get the spouse's name and phone number. Okay. Hey, I know you're getting divorced. Sorry to hear that. Blah blah blah. What's the name? What was the name of your spouse again? Oh, my spouse's name is Jeff. Okay, great. Hey, do you have Jeff's phone number? Because in this situation, he probably knows agents. Agents gonna be calling him. I just want to call him, talk to him, make sure he doesn't have any questions, anything I can help out with. Okay. Again, don't try to get them together. Obviously, that doesn't work. Otherwise, they wouldn't be getting divorced. I don't understand. I never understood this when I'm talking to agents. Well, I'm trying to get the husband and wife together. They're getting divorced. They don't want to be together. That's why they're in this process. Stop trying to get them together. Okay. Talk to them individually. All right. But you got to have to find this out faster, because the longer it goes, who gets involved, the longer this process goes, whether it be NODs, probates, divorces. What profession gets involved?
Attorney.
Attorneys. Then the attorneys get involved. And what do attorneys have? Real estate agents. You know what a lot of attorneys also have? Real estate licenses. So when the attorney gets involved, if you find out somebody's getting divorced, if you find out there's a probate going on. Now in probates, the attorney is already involved a little bit, but you still want to jump on as quickly as possible, because once the parties raise their hands and say, you know what, I'm letting the attorney handle it, you're now in a really tough spot, because now you have to try to contact the attorney. Now, are attorneys generally easy to get a hold of?
No.
No. Attorneys are not easy to get a hold of, especially when they know why you're calling them. And if you're a real estate agent calling an attorney who's currently in the middle of a probate case, do they know why you're calling?
Yes.
1,000%. They're not in a rush to call you back. Okay. So once the parties raise their hands and say, you know what, forget it, we're going to let the attorney settle it. At that point, it's really, really tough to get somebody on their side, because now the attorney is going to make the decision. Okay. So when you find out somebody's getting divorced, when you find out somebody's in probate, when you find out there's a notice of delinquent, you have to respond quickly, get into conversation with every decision maker as fast as you can before they raise up their hands and say, forget it, we're going to let the attorneys handle it. Okay. Make sense? You have to get there before they do that. Otherwise, you're in a bad spot. Okay. So you have to find out who all the decision makers are. Don't try to get them all together. Just get all of their names and numbers separately. Call them all separately. Okay. Make sure that they're good. Try to get there before they raise up their hands and say, we're going to let the attorneys get involved. Okay. Now, if it's a probate specifically, you already know there's probably an attorney involved. You could try to get the attorney's number. So not only get anyone else who's involved in the decision-making process, but maybe get the attorney to have a conversation with the attorney before it gets to that point where they just say, we're going to let the attorney handle it. Because if you can build that relationship with the attorney, say, oh, hey, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, this is Robert, Century 21. Jane and Tom wanted me to give you a call because I've been talking to them about helping them sell their house during their divorce, and they said that you were the attorney, so I just wanted to connect with you. Sometimes if I can make that introduction, it helps a little bit ease me into that role, because now if I can build a good relationship with the attorney, I have a better chance of, when the bickering starts with the people involved in the probate or the divorce, the attorney might just say, you know what, let's just go with Robert. You've already talked to him. You both like him. Let's go with it. Okay. Now, in a divorce situation and a probate where there's multiple people involved, is there going to be bickering amongst the parties?
Yes.
Guaranteed. So if I can get the attorney on my side who will act as the middle person in this particular situation, it makes it a little bit easier for me. Okay. So you want to also try to get the attorney's information to at least just introduce yourself. But ideally, do that after you've spoken to all the parties, because you don't want to set yourself up for a bitter battle between the other parties involved. Here's what I mean. Let's say it's a probate and there's a brother and sister. And the brother and sister don't get along in general, and now there's money involved, which generally does not unite people. Okay. So now there's money involved. I talked to the sister. Sister says, yeah, you know, my brother's thinking about this. Here's the attorney's information. I don't talk to the brother yet. Call the attorney. Hey, I spoke to Jane. You know, she mentioned you were the attorney. Well, then the attorney talks to John, who's the brother. John's going to be pissed that Jane talked to you and told you to go to the attorney without talking to him, which is going to lead to bitterness, and that's not going to help you. So before you contact the attorney, make sure you say, hey, let me call John first too, just to let him know that you and I spoke, who I am, answer any questions. So then when you go to the attorney, there's no surprises when the attorney goes and talks to the clients. Okay? So it's important that you, this is the foundation. This is the stuff that you really got to make sure you lock in if you're going to start working these sources. Okay, next thing I wrote down here. This is more of a mindset thing when you're talking about scripts and prospecting and things along those lines. Accept the fact that 50% of the people you talk to are going to hate no matter anything you say. And 50% of the people you got a shot with. There is no script. There is no way of going about contacting these people that you're going to appeal to 100% of the audience. No freaking way. So don't try to come up with the perfect script that's going to work for everybody. Don't be upset if 50% of the people that you talk to say screw you and hang up, because at least 50% are not going to like what you have to say. Let me give you an example. If I was in the situation where I was the son dealing with a probate, okay? My parents passed away. I'm now dealing with the probate. My personality, for those of you who say, well, hey, I'm going to come across sympathetic, right? My approach is going to be sympathetic to these people. If you called me after my dad passed away and you're a total stranger and you say, oh, Robert, I'm so sorry to hear about your loss. My mentality is going to be like, F you. You don't know me. You don't care about me. You don't care about my dad. You want my business. And you're pretending to be sympathetic. That would be my mentality. But there's going to be somebody else that is going to say, oh, thank you. Well, I appreciate the kind words and all this. And you're going to say, hey, I'm here to help people with this. And they're going to go, oh, well, yeah, and you're going to connect with them because they want the sympathy. So don't try to come up with the perfect script. Don't get upset if 50% of the people get pissed off, because there's no perfect script to go after this. What you have to do is decipher, do I want to take the sympathetic approach or do I want to take the direct approach? Both can work. Both of them are only going to appeal to 50% of the audience, because now let's say you were the more direct approach. And I was again the probate, right? I was, my dad had passed away. I'm taking over the property, and you just came at me just direct, not rude, but direct. Hey, Robert, look, I got your information. Understand there was, some tragedy in the family. Sorry to hear about that. But what I do, my specialty is I work with a lot of people just like yourself to make sure this, seamless transaction. You just get right into it. If you did that to me, I'd be far more receptive. But if I'm talking to an amiable and I did that, they're going to shut down because they're going to be like, wow, there's no sympathy. I'm going through a lot. This guy's just so direct. They're going to shut down. So you have to develop the mindset. Don't be upset when 50% of the people are pissed, because any approach that you take is only going to work for half the audience. Does that make sense? Okay. Don't, it's okay. It's okay. Well, Robert, I took a class and they said this script works with everybody. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. Good luck. It's okay. But either process works. So what I wrote down underneath, decipher before you prospect these leads. Are you going to be the sympathetic person or are you going to be the direct person? Okay. Because you can't, what you don't want to be is in between. I'm kind of sympathetic, but I'm kind of getting to the point. No, no, no. You're either fully sympathetic of their situation or you're more direct. Both can work. But you have to decipher what you are and then create a script or create a line of questions that go with whatever way you want to handle it so that you're consistent in your message. Okay, but decipher who you want to be. Don't be, but I always have to make sure I tell this. Being direct is not being rude. It's not being pushy. It's just, you're just getting to the point faster instead of taking the roundabout approach. Questions on any of that? Okay, cool. Good stuff. All right, so I know some of this is kind of difficult, because some of you are amiables or analyticals, and you're like, man, Robert, you mean to tell me that if I was to call you, you would tell me to F off in this particular situation? It's like, yeah, I would. It's not because I'm that type of person. I see myself as a very positive person, but if you called me and I'm going through some financial problems, you're like, hey, I see that there's delinquent on your mortgage. Like, it's just my style. That's okay. For those of you that are direct, I would be your ideal client. Okay, so don't get frustrated. Again, this is not to discourage you. This is just from a mindset perspective. Be okay with it. All right. Next thing I wrote down. Yes, Pieni.
Is there a research based on data and like numbers to say, for example, for notice of default, maybe phone call would work better versus postal, or different approaches work better in certain scenarios?
Good question. Mailing always works the least. Now, it can work, but it works the least for a couple different reasons. One, it's slower. So by the time you create a postcard and mail it, even if it gets there 1 or 2 days later, they've been called by 10 or 15 people or door knocked by 10 or 15 people. So the mailing is usually delayed. So that's one. The second reason is that, well, does everybody here read every piece of mail? No. Right? So the issue you have with the mailer is that you're only going to get a select few people that are going to read it. Now, same thing with a phone call. Like, there's only a select few people that are going to answer the phone, but I have a better chance of them answering the phone and having a conversation than them reading my mail. So, and then the third reason is, even if I create a really good flyer or letter that outlines the process, I'm not able to engage in their questions and ask the conversations. So mailing could work, and we've seen mailers work, but it's the least efficient of the ways. So it would be more of I'm going to make phone calls and mail. I'm going to door knock and mail type of thing. So That's what you want to go as far as the mail goes. Great question.
But for the events and stuff, are there certain type of events that you can kind of get to those people right kind of in the borderline? So you may not have to get them from the lawyer. You can have already kind of pre-connected with them. Because one of the approaches I had done, it was the psychologists that they are kind of have marriage counseling. And coming from a healthcare background and knowing some of those people, that's kind of the idea I had. But I'm kind of thinking out loud with you being the expert, what kind of events would be good to be part of, kind of prevent before having to treat?
Well, it's a great question. I don't know how you would get that information unless you knew somebody, but I don't even know if a counselor could divulge that information. So yes, an event would be, well, look, I mean, when you're talking about divorce, would be someone who, yeah, some sort of counseling, marriage counseling, people that are living separately, you know, something along those lines would obviously be people that are ideal candidates for that type of a situation. When you're talking about probates, because probate's a death, you gotta, for lack of a better term, they used to call this with attorneys, they would call them ambulance chasers. So with probates, it's a death. So anyone that's, in the hospital, anyone that's not doing very well, things along those lines, obviously could be a potential situation of a probate potentially happening. So there are NODs. There's not really anything you can do because people are so quiet about their finances. You don't know that somebody's having financial problems until they're having financial problems, and it becomes public record that people can pull the information. So NODs, unless you have a personal relationship with someone who says that they're having some money issues, you're not going to be able to. There's no real place for them to go to do that, unless something along those lines. But again, I don't know how you would get that information. But to your point, this is where sometimes listening just to people in general might trigger it. I say this all the time, right? When we're prospecting. Oh, so and so, yeah, you know what? They're getting married and they're having a baby. Yeah. My head goes up like, do they need a bigger house? Nobody said about them having a bigger house, but the life event made me think of a real estate. So sometimes maybe that's where it comes from. If you hear that somebody's having some sort of problems, they're going through marriage counseling, or they're having financial difficulties, or this person's not healthy, they're not doing very well, then, that might be a flag for you to try to integrate yourself into helping them if something comes up. Other than that, I don't know how you would pull the information. But that's kind of some of the stuff that you have to look at when you're talking to people, is you're looking at life events, to try to get yourself in front of people. But this also comes from your database, is you have to listen when you're talking to people in your database, because some people will tell you things, and then that can help you line some of that stuff up. So good questions.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So there you go. So the next thing I wrote down here in terms of going after these is going after, to that point, is going after the attorneys. So how do I get to the attorneys to be that particular person that they would refer the business to if it is a probate, if it is a divorce? Typically, NODs don't get too involved with attorneys. So how do I get to the attorneys? So a couple different ways you could go about that. Number one, you could just start calling attorney offices. Okay. And just introduce yourself. Be pretty, but be direct, be concise, and be to the point. Hi, my name is Robert Hertel. I'm with Century 21. I understand that you're a divorce attorney for so-and-so, correct? Correct. Okay, great. Well, do you have an agent that you work with when somebody's going through a divorce that they might ask you for a recommendation? Just be direct on it. Don't be okay, or just be okay with it. Don't try to be cute. Don't try to be, whatever. Just be direct with the conversation. Now, one of the things that can help when dealing with attorneys is send them a pre-listing package, same way you would send a seller. The reason for that is you're trying to impress them. They get calls from agents. They get emails from agents. They get mailers from agents. I want to be your agent. And they might already have an agent that they work with or agents that they work with. So how do I separate myself? Well, send them a pre-listing package. It's the same way a seller is really impressed with your pre-listing package. An attorney might be impressed that you took the time to put this together. Okay. Then you can follow up with them. Hey, did you receive my pre-listing package? Yeah, I did. That was really nice. Thank you. Very well put together. Well, I send that to every single one of my sellers. And then you can kind of, this is my way of showing you what I do for the clients to show how my level of service and how on top of things I am. So sometimes that might impress the attorney because it shows that you're a little more on top of it. So you could send a pre-listing package to the attorneys as well. But I would just call through. I would just call through. Now, I would try to focus on attorneys that specialize in these cases because there's a lot of attorneys and you don't want to spend time calling personal injury attorneys, insurance attorneys, things like that. So make sure when you're calling attorneys that you're breaking the list down of these are divorce attorneys, these are probate attorneys, things like that. Okay. So that way you're not spending too much time. You could also go to attorney offices. I found that to be a little more difficult because then you have to get past a gatekeeper in person. And they're usually not just going to let you walk into a meeting when it comes to an attorney, especially if it's a busy attorney. So now you might not get through to them on the phone either, but at least I didn't waste the time going down there. But a phone call, they might be more receptive to because it's easier to end the conversation on the phone than it is in person. So if you go to an attorney and try to meet them face to face, it's harder for them to get you out of the office. When it's on the phone, it's, hey, I got this other call coming through. I got to do this. It's easier to hang up the phone. So you might have a better chance of getting more contacts with attorneys through the phone than you would going down to the office. Okay. But now, I want you to think about something here. I want you to think about something when you're going after attorneys. Attorneys have to go to law school, correct? Okay. Attorneys have to pass the bar exam, which is a very difficult test to pass. Attorneys go to court dressed in a suit, dressed professionally every single day. They go to the office dressed up every single day. So in order to work with an attorney or to get an attorney on my side, I have to have the same mindset as an attorney, meaning that I have to show that I'm super professional, that I'm not just someone who got a real estate license. So if I'm going to go to an attorney, I'm wearing my best outfit. Okay. I'm super professional. If I'm going to send them any information, if I'm going to send them an email, I'm going to double and triple check the spell check, the grammar. Because these are people that went to school, passed an exam. They are precise. They hold themselves to a very high standard. And if you're saying, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, and Jones is spelled J-N-O-E-S instead of J-O-N-E-S, they're like, this guy can't even type. So double and triple check the spell check, double and triple check the grammar, right? Make sure that when you're sending them information, everything's updated address, updated headshot, updated phone number, whatever the case may be, that you're on top of it. You're high end. Send them your schedule, that you have a really strict schedule. That's you have to think from the mind of an attorney, and attorneys hold themselves on a really high standard, very professional, very precise, very on top of it, very efficient. That's the life of an attorney. You have to show that to them if you want to get them on your side. Now, for some of you, that's really easy. You do that every day. Some of you, let's be honest, that's a little more difficult. Okay. I see some of your text messages that you send me. I have to enter into Google Translate. Convert from English to Spanish? No, English to real estate agent. I had this in order for me to decipher what you sent me. Oh, I'm just having some fun. Okay. But that's the key is, Robert, how do I go after these attorneys? I have to appeal to an attorney. I have to think like an attorney. I have to act like an attorney. I can't just act like someone who just passed a real estate exam that was easy to do. Okay. They take a lot of pride in their job. So keep in mind that. But again, when you're prospecting them, just get to the point. Look, this is why I'm calling. And then what I wrote down underneath that, when it comes to going after attorneys, it's okay to be the second option. It's okay to be the second option. I already have an agent. Hey, no problem. I want to be the second option in case agent number one is out of town. Does your agent ever take vacations? Yeah, they take vacations. Well, when they go on vacation, if you have a case, send it to me. Are there times when the clients don't like the agent?
Yep.
It happens all the time. Hey, look, if you ever run into a situation where your clients aren't super happy with the agent, let me be your number two. Okay. Do you ever have clients that are analyticals? Are analyticals going to be okay with just one interview and one agent? No, probably not. So, hey, look, Mr. Attorney, if you have an analytical, they're probably not going to want to interview just one agent. Let me be the second agent they interview. Even if you heavily push for the first agent, just let me be the second one that interviews. So now I've just laid out a few different scenarios to that attorney where they might actually need my services. Because what the attorney thinks is I already have an agent. Yeah, that's great. And they do a great job. Good for you. I just want to be the second option in case something like this happens. Because now if I say that to an attorney, if I say, well, hey, are there ever times when your clients don't like the agent? Well, yeah, great. I just want to be your second opinion there. You ever have clients that are analyticals? Oh, yeah. Okay, well, they're not going to want to interview one agent, are they? No. So let me be the second agent, even if you heavily push. Okay. Your agent ever take a vacation? Yeah. Okay, great. Well, when that happens, you're going to need an agent to go to, right? This is a time sensitive case. Yeah. Let me be that second person. So based on that, you could see why it's at least beneficial to have me on your roster, right? Oh, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Boom. Now I've just created at least an interview with that attorney. I've created a relationship with that attorney, even if it just means I'm the second one in line. But sometimes that's what you have to do. And then when you get your shot, right? It's like in sports. Hey, the first baseman got hurt. We're calling you up. It's your shot. You better go play. Right? Now's your time to just shine, blow their socks off. But it's okay to start as the second option. NODs, same thing. When you prospect an NOD, right? Hey, look, the home came up as a delinquent mortgage. What is the NOD almost guaranteed to say that they're doing regarding their delinquency?
Figure it out with the bank.
That's it. They're trying to resolve it with the bank. Loan mod. Maria put it out there too. Almost guaranteed. We're trying to work it out with the bank. Trying to do a loan modification. Almost guaranteed. So you have to go into the NOD with the mindset of being the just in case. So Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I get it. That's great. And I hope the bank works it out with you. Can I tell you why it's still really important for us to meet? Sure. Best case scenario for you. We meet, we come to terms on price, commission, things like that. We even sign an agreement. Best case scenario for you, the bank calls you and says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Jones, we've approved the loan modification. We're going to lower your payment down to this. And then you call me and you say, hey, Robert, they approved my loan modification. We don't have to sell. I say, wow, great. Good for you. We rip up the contract. No one even knew that your home was for sale. Okay. But here's the worst case scenario for you. You're already delinquent on your mortgage. You're trying to work it out with the bank. If the bank decides not to approve your loan modification, the bank decides not to approve your loan modification, and you're already delinquent, what could the bank start doing?
Foreclosure process.
They could start the foreclosure process. Now, so here's the scary part, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. If we haven't met yet, if you haven't met with an agent yet, and you haven't come to terms, the bank announces that they're not going to approve your loan modification. They could instantly start that foreclosure process on you, which means you're going to have to scramble to find an agent to work with, come to an agreement on price, come to an agreement on terms, get all the marketing done, get the pictures done, get it on the market, get the house cleaned up, get it on the market. By that time, we might be a couple weeks into this. We might not have enough time to get it sold before the bank enters into a sale date. How much equity do you have in the house? $200,000. I mean, for 200, it's 200 grand that you might lose out on if we delay this. So why don't we come to get to an agreement on price, terms, have the contract signed, schedule the photographer, do all that stuff. And if you call me and say, hey, the bank didn't approve your modification, no problem. We'll be on the market in 2 or 3 days. And we're going to get you that 200 grand. Makes sense? Makes sense. Great. How about today or tomorrow at 4? Right? That's the approach with the NODs. They're going to tell you they're trying to work it out with the bank. So I need to take that approach. I'm your just in case. Now, the reality is everything I just said true? It's all true. If you work it out with me, if we meet and you sign a contract and they call you and say the bank worked it out, I'm not selling, you just rip up the contract. Nobody even knows it was for sale. It doesn't have to hit the market. You're good. Done. If it does now, but if the bank decides they don't want to do it, then off they go. Now, let me ask you a question. For those of you that have been paying attention to the news, is the banking system doing well right now?
Nope.
Nope.
Doing bad.
So, do you think banks are in a rush to help and keep delinquent mortgages on their books or offload them?
Offload them.
Offload them. So right now with an NOD, that's a conversation you can have. I'm trying to work it out with the bank. Okay, great. I hope it works out for you. Have you been reading the news recently of what's been going on with the banks? No. Let me enlighten you. And I'm not telling you this because I'm not telling you this to scare you into getting me to take your listing. I'm just trying to educate you. I hope the bank works it out with you. But if they don't, I don't want you to lose $200,000. They are going to try to offload this delinquency. Let's get together for 15 minutes. Let's come to an agreement on price, terms, marketing, everything like that. So that way, in case they decline your modification, we're on the market. You get your 200 grand, you're out. Okay, so take that approach when you're working with these NODs, okay, to get that appointment. Yes, Benny.
With these NODs and kind of those foreclosure and short sales, I'm hearing different things. And you being the expert, I want your input on this. You know how you become an expert with regards to the short sales and foreclosure situations? I was hearing that given the bank's situation nowadays, if you're trying to become an expert for those scenarios, banks, as they're trying to offload, they may sell several properties all at the same time to the different person instead of having contract with real estate agents. How true do you think that statement is? Or is there something that you can do so they select you for that short sale or foreclosure?
Well, it could be true because you have companies like BlackRock, which is one of the largest hedge funds in the world, that in the last couple of years has purchased, I don't know, 50,000 residential properties in the United States. They're one of the largest owners of real estate in the country. And there's another one out there that is very similar. So it's not beyond the realm of possibility that a bank, to make their life easy, could contact a company like BlackRock and say, hey, we want to offload these properties as soon as possible. We'll sell you 7 of them in bulk. Just get them off our books, because they know BlackRock has the money and wants the property. So it's not out of the realm of possibility for them to do that. And it does make it easier on the bank, because now they don't have to wait for it to hit the market. They don't have to wait for do things, stuff like that. So it's totally reasonable that would be the case. If they decide to do that, there's really nothing you can do. The key right now to foreclosures is to do exactly what we're talking about, is get to the NOD before it goes to foreclosure. Because, to your point, that is a very, like, in 2008, banks tried to do all this selling themselves. Okay. They tried to offload one property at a time. They were even trying to sell properties themselves without using a real estate agent. That failed. Then they were hiring real estate agents, but there were so many properties in the foreclosure and homes were taking so long that failed, and things were just getting worse and worse and worse. So banks know they can't be the in charge of the real estate transaction. They can't handle that. So they're not going to do that again this time and offload one property at a time if it's in bulk, if they're doing a lot. Okay. Now, across the board, there's not a lot of foreclosures. Okay. Foreclosure percentages are down. And now delinquency percentages might be up, but foreclosures are down, because the difference in 2008, when people were delinquent, they walked away because they didn't have any equity. Well, now people are not walking away. They're going to do whatever they can to avoid foreclosure, because they have $100,000, $200,000 in equity in it. Because most delinquent mortgages are not people that did a 0% down interest or 0% down loan in the last 2 or 3 years. So I don't know how many foreclosures are going to hit the market, but the banks aren't going to try to just, offload one at a time. They're not going to do that, because it didn't work last time. They're going to probably sell in bulk to places like BlackRock if they have a lot of foreclosures all at once. So there's really not many things you can do. You can try to find out who the asset manager is at a bank that handles the REO department, and see what can I do to become one of the agents that's part of your REO portfolio. But they're not doing a lot of that these days, because it failed so miserably in 2008. More than likely, they're just going to sell it to larger corporations, who will then either keep it and rent it or resell it themselves.
And Robert,
That,
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
Right now, the market is so different than what it was in 2008. In 2008, many people didn't really know what to expect from short sale, and they didn't even know the difference between short sale and also NODs. The public is a lot more educated now. They know what they mean, and they know how much equity they have. They know what they can do, cannot do. So those are the ones, the ones that don't have their heads buried in the sand. And they know that banks may not work with them. They're immediately going to list the house and then sell it, and at least save their equity.
Yeah. The equity in their house is why foreclosure rates are really low.
Exactly.
So to answer your question, Benny, I don't think right now, I don't think there's much you can do in terms of being a preferred agent with a bank. You could try to contact an asset manager at a bank who headlines the REO department and say, hey, foreclosure, short sales, how can I be on that list? And you could see what they do. But in my experience recently, they're not really going that route. It's like, we either have a couple people that we already work with, or we're just going to sell it to these larger corporations because it's easier for us to just offload it. So the key is going to be getting to them before it gets to a foreclosure process or a short sale process, in order to try to just get the property sold. which is where coming into these types of things are. But that's why it's even more important to be that just in case person, because if it comes down to the bank says we're going to foreclose on your property in 2 weeks, then the client has no option except to go to the bank and say, well, what are my options to sell it? And the bank can say, well, we could just sell it to BlackRock.
Mm.
And then it's like, and BlackRock, and your home is worth $500,000, but we're going to sell it for 400, and we're going to close in 7 days. And the seller's going to go, okay, otherwise we're going to take it and you get nothing.
Yeah.
So
I
when it
agree
gets
with
that process,
I agree with you on that, and I definitely don't think it's going to be immediately in the market, but given the number of notice of default and the number of layoffs happening right and left, whoever you talk to, I'm kind of trying to anticipate kind of being able to deal with those short sales and foreclosures and be one of those resources for the bank. But I know that definitely doesn't exist today, but I was kind of trying to be prepared by the time that situation is going to come up.
yeah, no, it's a great idea. It's a great idea. Contact asset managers, find out who the asset manager is at the bank that runs the REO department. And you're probably going to get an email address or something like that. Reach out to them and see, hey, how do I become an agent in this area if you have foreclosures and short sales, and see what they say. I mean, and there's no harm in doing it. But yeah, that's going to be the key is, they're going to try to make it easy and efficient for themselves because they don't want to have to sell 1,000 homes. And it just
Robert,
didn't work well. Yep.
I had a question. So if they're selling them to like BlackRock and stuff, they're never going to even get a chance to hit the market, which is going to keep the inventory low, which is going to keep the prices high. Does that make sense?
That's one of the reasons why the inventory is so low right now, is because there's a lot of big hedge funds in the last 4 to 5 years that have purchased a ton of property. I'm talking like hundreds of thousands of homes across the United States. There are 3 or 4 hedge funds that that are by far the largest residential homeowners in the United States. So that is one of the issues with the inventory, is that these hedge funds just purchased homes like crazy because rent prices are still outrageous. And so they can hold on to these assets, which then increases their portfolio. So then they could either increase their portfolio and increase their revenue through rents, or they could convert these into REITs, REITs, which are real estate investment trusts. And then they can get our money to invest in these properties that they own, because we can't go buy our own because we can't compete with them. It's freaking genius if you work for that company. It sucks for us because it keeps the inventory low, it keeps the prices high, it keeps investments really hard. But you know what? When you have billions and billions of dollars like some of these companies have, what are you gonna do? So yep, that is part of the case. But when you're a bank like Wells Fargo, for example, and you have a short sale and a foreclosure, they don't care about the inventory. Okay. They just want to get the asset off their books. And so if a company like BlackRock could say, hey, we'll buy 15 properties from you in bulk and they'll be off your books tomorrow, Wells Fargo is going to go, thank you. Take them. They're not going to care about the inventory shortage or anything along those lines because they have so many different revenue streams. So they would rather just get the asset off their books. Good stuff. All right. Other questions of stuff we went over today. All right. All right. Well, look, there's more to this stuff, but we've covered a lot in almost an hour. And the questions were great. So thank you for the questions and participating. But hopefully you at least got a general idea of going after these sources, going after these types of people. Okay. Look at how you would generate these sources, figure out where do I get these leads? There's different places where you can get these leads and get this information and stuff like that. You could figure that out. If you have more questions on it, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to go over some of this a little bit more. This was recorded. I'll make sure Jesse gets that out. Maybe he'll get it out sometime. he's 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 a busy guy. I'll put it on a priority list. We'll get this out in the next couple days. So that way you can have it and review it. And for the people that didn't get to see it, we'll make sure we get it posted. All right, everybody. That's all I got. Again, thanks for being here.